In this video I'm going to show you how you can get rid of that CG look when rendering with Blender. So I've prepared a quick scene from an old project, just repositioned a camera to just show this ship here. And as you can see, the image is very sharp, so we can see all of these individual ropes and all this detail here, and everything is quite sharp and CG looking basically. Also here with the water. So I want to get rid of this sharpness, so I'm simply going to add a blur node and increase the size ever so slightly until I get a nice blur. Now you might not see anything, it's a bit hard. So apparently Blender changed these nodes with the latest version, so I'm still getting used to that. But as you can see, we blurred this image a bit. Let's reduce this. Let's mute this with M on the keyboard. Let's zoom out. Let's see everything. As you can see, all this small detail here is being blurred, and that's exactly what I want. So I'm not sure how much is actually visible in the YouTube compression, but if I zoom in, you will see we get rid of a lot of these smaller details. So what I will do is select this and press F and label this blur so that I know what it does. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but later on this might be helpful. As a next step, we are going to add some glow. So let's add in a glare node, like so, and let's change this to either bloom or fog glow. I like fog glow, but in the end it just depends on what you like. Basically it's another way of blurring sharp edges. In this case we are just blurring the highlights or the bright parts. So let's reduce the threshold a bit. Like so, let's disable this and see the difference. Let's maybe reduce the strength. Yeah, like this. So of course, this is just a quick tutorial. You can really spend a lot of time with this. So next thing, we want to add some lens distortion and chromatic aberration. So for that we are going to use the lens distortion node, like so. And we can now increase this distortion to get some lens distortion basically. I like to put it to a minus number, not too strong, like minus 0.3 I think I always go with, 0.03. And as you can see, if we mute this, this is what it does. So nothing you immediately notice, but combined with all the other stuff, this will definitely do its part. Then we have the dispersion, which is basically adding chromatic aberration. So I'm not sure how realistic this version of chromatic aberration is, because I think it adds it to the whole image, and in reality it's only on the high contrasty areas. But if you care, you can definitely find some workarounds, but I'm just going to add some slight chromatic aberration here. We don't want it to be too strong. Let's try 0.02. Yeah, I like this. We can also go to 0.015, like so. So if we mute this, we can see what it does. And I think especially on the water here, this really does a lot, right? So next thing, let's press F, lens distortion. Let's add some lens dirt. So for that, I'm going to use an image texture I have. So you can just Google anything, or you can just take some dirt, but I have this image here. And I'm going to drag this in, like so. And I'm also going to add a mix color node. and set this to screen. Now plug this in and turn it up. As you can see, it's much smaller than the overall aspect ratio and resolution. So I'm using Control Shift left click to view these individual nodes. And to increase it and match the resolution, let's add in a transform node, put it in here and increase the scale until it fits like so. Now, as you can see, this image has this bluish tint, which is fine, but I want to basically get the tint of this image in the background. I'm going to show you what I mean. So let's make some space and let's add in another blur node. Blur. Let's view this and let's increase the size. This time I really want this to be quite blurry. Like this. So now I'm going to view this and add a hue saturation node, hue saturation value, and I'm going to reduce all the saturation. So now all the color is gone, and now I want to get back the color with a mix color node, set to multiply. And for this I'm going to choose this blur node with all the color information here and plug this into the B socket. So if we now look at this, we can see we colored it like we want. I'm not sure how realistic this is, but I always like this method more than actually taking the color information from the lens dirt itself. So now, so it's not that obvious. There are multiple ways of increasing this. We can add a multiply node and increase this value to 2 or 3. But we can also, let's mute this, we can also try out different blending modes like multiply. Okay, multiply is too strong. And let's try lighten. Lighten does nothing. Where's overlay? Let's go with this. This darkens the image a bit, but I'm fine with that. So this is nothing too obvious, but especially if we have an animation and this does not move, this will give a lot of realism. Now let's take this, let's delete this. Let's press F and let's call this lens dirt. Now, as one of the last steps is to add a vignette. So let's search for ellipse mask. Let's preview this. And let's increase the size to something like this. And again, we are going to add a blur node. Blur this quite a bit. And then we are going to add another mix color node. Mix color. Set this to multiply. And take this and multiply this on top of the rest. As you can see, we can now add this vignette to the scene. So don't overdo it. Maybe this is already a bit too strong. Now, as the last step, you're going to add a bit of contrast to this whole image. So this has nothing to do with lens effects, but I think this is a huge advantages of compositors, that you can simply change the overall look with, for example, a gamma node. Let's increase the gamma. Like so. Maybe reduce this again a bit. So now let's see what we did. Let's select everything. Let's press M. And as you can see, this was before and this is after. Before, after. So especially here on the ship, you can really see that this looks much more realistic and as if this was filmed with a real camera, right? So here everything is sharp, unnaturally sharp, and really looking like a CG render, which it of course is. But I think you get the idea how easily you can add some realism to your renders, especially in the background. Going from this to this is, in my opinion, really cool. So depending on your scene, you of course want to change up these settings a bit. Also, you don't always want to add all the effects, and I've not even shown you all there is, but in this case, for example, I've added some glare, some blur, lens distortion and chromatic aberration, and some vignetting, and that's about it. And you can see the difference here if I mute this. The effect isn't nearly as strong as before, but it wasn't really necessary. But you can see some glare and stuff. So if you're wondering what this scene is, this is actually a product I'm currently working on and which I will release in a few weeks, probably. So these are basically HDRIs from the perspective of a plane, mostly above the clouds. So the cool thing is that with some clever nodes, you can fake some animation. So this is Eevee. So if we play this, you can see the plane is moving. And it looks like the plane is actually flying. So now, since this is Eevee and in real time, you can place your cameras wherever you want. You can even place it in the cockpit, like so. It's photorealistic because it was done in cycles. You can place the camera here. You can always adjust what you want to see and in which direction the plane is flying, right? The cool thing is you can easily, even if you've animated your plane and all that, you can easily switch out the HDRI to something different, like maybe some mountains, and the plane works in every environment, like so, right? So if you're interested in this product and want to know when this will release, then consider getting a free Patreon membership. There I will keep you up to date on all the progress I make, and you will of course get a notification once this product is available. So there will be a free version with some limitations. So become a free member on Patreon and get notifications once this is out. Link in the video description. With that said, have a great day. See you soon. Bye.